5-1 run with complimentary plays, and I've got a number of selections on this late Saturday card, including the Big 12 battle in Waco, where the Bears are hell-bent on revenge as they host TCU. Going to take a look at the Big Ten battle between Michigan State and Indiana. The Hoosiers have lost 7 straight. They're not going to win today, but can they stay within that double-digit spread against the Spartans team that's looking to bounce back after having its 13-game winning streak snap with that loss at Purdue last weekend? All that and more coming up. So tomorrow we've got that little game in Atlanta to be played between the Patriots and the Saints. Well, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. The NFL screwed us. It's not the Saints, it's the Rams. Pardon me. Anyway, this, of course, is going to be the 3rd Super Bowl to be played in Atlanta. You may have seen some of the stories or watched the various videos on ESPN and read the accompanying story about the weak market for resellers in terms of the Super Bowl tickets. Oh, let's have a pity party that sports brokers and sports ticket resellers aren't making a hell of a lot of money scalping tickets for the Super Bowl. Let's just all shed a tear for them for not being able to make massive markups on Super Bowl tickets, reselling them, huh? Geez, what a damn shame, isn't it? But listen, 1994, I was living in Atlanta at the time. I lived down there for about 9.5 years. And a guy I was working for at the time wanted to get Super Bowl tickets. So I was tasked with that job. So I found a number of brokers, and I finally found one scalper. Let's be honest, it was a scalper. Ticket agency, let's call them by their official name. It was a ticket agency. It was a scalper, damn it. Found one, contacted him about 5 weeks before the Super Bowl, and it's a process. You find the guy, they assure you they can get the tickets, and you start building this relationship. And then finally you find out who the teams were going to be, and it was going to be Dallas and Buffalo. Well, nobody really cared about seeing the Bills potentially lose another Super Bowl, but Dallas, well, there was some interest in seeing the Cowboys. But more importantly, it was Hotlanta. And Atlanta at that time in the early 90s, it was the place to be. It wasn't really like South Beach, That was like later in the 90s, in the early 2000s. But Atlanta was the place to be at that time. The athletes were flocking to Atlanta. It was a town that was just booming, great nightlife. It was the place to be. So, it was a process. You get closer to the game. You start negotiating. I needed to get 10 tickets to the game. So we negotiated a price. And the bottom line was this. I'm heading down to the Omni Hotel in Atlanta. And at the time, the Omni, I think it was called, had and it still does, I don't know if it's still called the Omni, it had the restaurant at the top that kind of slowly rotates. And I'm heading down to the Omni Hotel 2 days before the game with $27,000 cash in my pocket. There's something about walking around with $27,000 cash in your pocket anywhere, let alone downtown Atlanta. It's a little awe-inspiring, and it's also a little worrisome at the same time. And especially when you realize you're going to meet somebody you've never met before other than talking to them 4 weeks in a row on the phone, and you're going to meet them in a penthouse suite at a hotel to buy Super Bowl tickets. So I go, meet the guy, going to buy the tickets. Now, I had no interest in going to the game. Personally, going to a Super Bowl, never had any interest in doing anything like that. To me, watch it on TV. You couldn't pay me to go to an NFL game anyway. It's just not my cup of tea. Not interested at all. To squeeze in those little seats where everybody in that row should really be going to a Jenny Craig convention? Really? I mean, there's just nothing that you could pay me to go to one of those games where everybody's going to be spilling that overpriced flat beer in those little plastic cups that you're paying $16 for onto your lap. No, it just doesn't do it for me. I'm sorry. Not my cup of tea. So go and get the things. And this is the deal I made. For being the guy that was doing it, and those tickets, of course, came with, I think it was the NFL Experience at that time. It was relatively new. What did I get out of doing it? I got free tickets, first row, to go to see Billy Joel with my wife, and free tickets to go see Frank Sinatra, who was also one of the pregame concerts that was in town that weekend. The Omni, where Frank Sinatra was like half filled. Billy Joel was a sellout. That was the inducement to buy the Super Bowl tickets. Billy Joel, front row seats, free. Frank Sinatra, free. Super Bowl tickets, $27,000. Not a bad deal. You know, watch the game, go to 2 concerts for free, walk down there with $27,000 cash in your pocket. I don't know. I thought it was a decent deal. So anyway, with that being said, let's get to your complimentary plays here. First game, let's talk about this game between Baylor and TCU. Now, the first time these two met, Baylor fell down by 19 points at halftime, but they rallied to cut the deficit to 1 with about 19 seconds to play. But TCU managed to hold on for an 85-81 win. Now, in that game, Tristan Clark, Baylor's power forward, was one of 5 players in double figures for the Bears with 19 points. Now, he has since gone down with a season-ending knee injury. Since then, Baylor has gone 5-1, reeling off 5 straight wins. And the most impressive of those 5 straight wins was their last game, Monday, in Norman, against a very good Oklahoma team. They smacked the Sooners around, winning that game 77-47. I mean, they shot almost 55%, 10 of 20 on threes. Only committed 12 turnovers against a tenacious Sooners defense, and they held the Sooners to 37.3% in Oklahoma. Damn impressive performance. Probably one of the most impressive defensive performances turned in by any team in the Big 12 this season. Well, now they're back at home. They're playing in revenge, taking on a TCU team that's coming off an 84-65 loss at Texas Tech on Monday. That was a season-high allowed in points by the Horned Frogs, those 85 they gave up to Texas Tech. And the way I look at it is that Texas Tech is another team known for its defensive prowess, not a team known for its offensive ability. And yet the Red Raiders put 85 points up against the Horned Frogs in that game in Lubbock on Monday night. TCU is 0-4 on the Big 12 highway this year. They lost to Kansas State by 10, they lost at Oklahoma by 2, they lost to Kansas by 9, and they just got smoked at Texas Tech. If I'm playing this game, I'm laying the points with Baylor, and that's the way I'm going to go. Let's talk about Michigan State. So they had the 13-game winning streak snapped at Purdue. I know, because yours truly had a 15-dime best bet on Michigan State in that game. It was a 10-point loss of Purdue. Listen, Purdue was playing in revenge. I understand what happened in West Lafayette last weekend, but there's no way I could possibly take Indiana, a team which, you know, Archie Miller in his first year there at the Hoosiers, as head coach of the Hoosiers, you know, challenged his team after their 6th straight loss. And what happened? Well, they lose 66-58 at Rutgers on Wednesday. And it was a game where Rutgers, I think, went on a 25-0 run spanning the end of the first half and the beginning of the second half. So that motivational tactic didn't work. It's a big number, 14.5 points. But I'm looking for Michigan State, especially since the Spartans have had enough time between that loss last Sunday and today's game, and playing back at home against Indiana team that started the season with such promise, but injuries have just devastated their lineup. They don't have a lot of depth, and I think that this is a good spot to lay the points with Michigan State. Here's an interesting game. Louisville and North Carolina. Remember the first time these two met in Chapel Hill? Back on January 12th, Louisville took the Tar Heels to the woodshed, 83-62. And that began a 6-game winning streak for the Cardinals. Now, North Carolina comes in here with a little momentum. They've won 4 straight. And North Carolina, you look at that roster, and it is a talented team. But they don't always play cohesively as a team. And Louisville today is a 1.5-point underdog. Now, if you look at these two teams and you go, North Carolina has all the talent in the world. They just don't always play that well. And they haven't all necessarily played that well on the road. I've got to take Louisville here and grab the 1.5 because Chris Mack has this Cardinal team playing well and believing in itself. So I'm going to go with Louisville in this particular spot. Of these 3 plays, obviously I like Baylor the most. The second would be Michigan State. The third would be Louisville. But clearly I like Baylor the most, hands down. And that'll do it. I wish you well, and we'll talk tomorrow about that again, a little game called the Super Bowl. Good